Good morning. As we continue our journey through First Chronicles today with chapters 22 through 24, and David is realizing that he's getting toward the end of his life, and he says, "Here shall be the house of the Lord God, and here the altar of the burnt offering for Israel." I mean, David has brought the Ark of the Covenant to Jerusalem and set it in the tent, the tabernacle, and got it all set up, and knows that he isn't the one to build the temple, the brick and mortar, stone and timber temple for God. But God had made this covenant, this promise to him that it would be his offspring. So David spends part of the last time of his reign as king in preparing for the building of the temple. And it says that he set the stone cutters to preparing dressed stones, and he provided great stores of iron for nails and the doors of the gates and for clamps, as well as bronze in great quantity, in quantities beyond weighing. More than they could even weigh in scale. Tremendous amount. Anyway, they're saying cedar logs without number. Coming from Sidonia and Tyre and these other places. So and David is saying, "My son Solomon is young and inexperienced, and the house that will be built for the Lord must be exceedingly magnificent, famous, and glorified throughout all the lands." And I think about the contrast of David's idea of this temple that he's going to build, Solomon will build for God, as being magnificent and glorious throughout, all the lands, beyond any believable expectations. And then it makes me think of like the Sistine Chapel and so many ornate church buildings today, that God had been content to be in a tent, to be in a non-decrepit, just in a plain, ordinary tent. Not that was a plain, ordinary tent. There was plenty of fancy linen and cloth, and God was explicit in the building of that too. But, to build his ornate temples to God is, and I understand in some ways, you wanting it to be nice for God, but sometimes we get a little bit carried away. Anyway, David is preparing for Solomon to be able to have everything he needs to build this temple. And then he calls his son Solomon and charges him to build this temple. And he tells him, "Well, I had hoped to build this temple, but God has promised that my son would be." And so David installs Solomon as king, as we're looking through here. And in this conversation that David has with his son Solomon, in verse 13, he says, "You will prosper if you are careful to observe the statutes and the ordinances of the Lord that the Lord commanded Moses." And then, "Be strong and of good courage. Do not be afraid or dismayed." And we can find those same words in other places in the Old Testament. I don't remember if it was in Judges for sure right now. I didn't take time to look to see where that is quoted from. But what a thing for us to think about too. "Be strong and of good courage. Do not be afraid or dismayed, but know that the Lord your God is with you in all that you do." This was the encouragement. This is an insurmountable task. Think about that. Think about the task of building a temple for God, or think about the task of trying to build your own house, or even just sometimes something simple, can be more than we can handle at the time. Sometimes depending on what's going on in our lives, even a simple task can seem to be almost overwhelming. But for Solomon, a young man, to be tasked with building the tabernacle, the temple for God, that's going to be there for years. And David says too, the home of the Israelites will be in Jerusalem forever. Well, that was a really good hope, But we know that didn't happen. We know that Jerusalem was destroyed, and Israelites were totally scattered and were not there anymore. And everything that was there has been gone. But David's words to Solomon, be strong and of good courage. Do not be afraid or dismayed. And powerful words for us to take into each day, I think, to remember that, and to know that in and through all things, God is with us. That, when we can't handle it on our own, we can turn to God. And then listen to this. It says 100,000 talents of gold. That's like 3,700 tons of gold. And the silver amount is like 37,000 tons of silver. 37,000 tons is, I don't know what, 7.5 million pounds, and silver at $23 an ounce, or roughly that today, say $350 a pound times 7 million pounds. I mean, that's a tremendous amount of money. And so it may not be exact, number-wise, but it's an amount that's incalculable. And that's the debt that we owe God. It's an incalculable amount of gratitude and praise. But, David has set aside just an exorbitant amount of money and trees and rocks and everything for Solomon to be able to build this temple. And then he also commanded all the leaders of Israel to come together to help his son Solomon. And he says, is not the Lord your God with you? Has he not given you peace on every side? He's delivered the inhabitants of this land out of our way, so that this is our land. And he says, set your mind and your heart to seek the Lord your God. That's his chapter 22, verse 19. Set your mind and heart to seek the Lord your God. And what another really good thought. Set your heart and mind to seek God, seek the glory of God. To just set your heart and mind on knowing God, and to let God be a part of everything that you are. Chapter 23, it says, it starts out, when David was old and full of his days, he made his son Solomon king. And again, he assembled all of the leaders, and he designates the different families within the Levites, within the Levitical tribe, as to, he counted up all of the male members of the Levites that were over 30, and okay, this is what your responsibilities are. This is your responsibilities are. And he put all of these things into place to make ruling easier for Solomon to be able then to focus on the building of the temple and the taking care of the people's needs and all of that. And he said, so many of you will be in charge of the work of the house. So many will be officers and judges. So many will be gatekeepers. So many will do this and this and this. So and what a sign of a good leader, to designate responsibilities to others, to know that other people are capable of doing these things. I don't have to do it all myself. And so by David designating these leaders, he's making it, easier for Solomon to be able to oversee it, maybe, or for that to happen under Solomon's kingship. Anyway, and so he's designating the Levites with different functions and families and stuff. And then chapter 23, we have continuing of that, the division of the priests, and telling, each group of, this is what you're going to do, the rest of the sons of, and it tells about a lot of, the sons of this man and the sons of that man, and what their responsibilities are. And so there isn't a question. There isn't, hopefully anyway, there won't be as much bickering about, well, that's my responsibility. I want to do that. I want to do this and this and this. And, but David has kind of set the stage as to how things should work and how everything should play out here. And part of it is done by, drawing the lots, or whichever, for this family to do this. Well, okay, you got 5 tasks. Well, this one is yours. Kind of, you pick and you choose. You draw a straw or whatever it might be. But so as David is nearing the end of his life, and we haven't seen the death of David yet at the end of chapter 24 where we finish up today, but David has put things in place to make his son Solomon's reign a little bit easier, a little bit more orderly, and much more able to fulfill then the responsibility of building a temple for God. The temple that was used for many, many years to worship, to offer the sacrifices and praises. The temple in Jerusalem where it became custom for the Jewish people to go for the Feast of the Passover and the different first fruits, offerings of the first fruits and all of those. So they had a centralized place that was built and designated for the worship and glory of God. And I'm thankful that we have church buildings today for that same purpose, but I'm also thankful that I can be here in my wood shop and share with you the good news of God, our Father.